Hey y'all, Erin here, and I am here recording today. And I haven't done a podcast like this in a while, but I was going to record something completely different about yoga retreats because I've led so many. I've had a lot of success with them. Um, but honestly, my mind is a little, I'm processing a lot. And so, you know what? I'm going to share an episode of me kind of live processing and just kind of explain. So, I did an art therapy session, which is not like art, like paint a picture of a horse or a bird or I guess your childhood demons. But it's more of a sort of EMDR. So, like, kind of tracing the eyes and bringing up painful memories. And, I'm a big advocate of therapy. Obviously, I'm a coach. So I do kind of different forms of therapies. So, I also get therapy because it's important because everybody has blind spots, and me included. And yeah, so I had a session today, and it was the lady knew her shit. Her name is Anita, and she has a website called Relational Skills. So even though I can't remember her last name, I can give you at least her website. So you can check her out. I think she's great. I only had one session, and I'm obviously processing. So if you schedule with her, just expect that things will come up. So I wanted to process any leftover grief about my ex because our breakup happened suddenly. And, I don't want to shrug my accountability and responsibility in the relationship because I had my stuff come up too. But a little bit towards the end of the relationship, it was more his stuff came up and he didn't want to look at it. And so, here we are. And what happened happened. But it was very traumatic and it was very sudden. And it's when you have a traumatic, sudden thing happen, it does something to your nervous system. And so I wanted to go into it. I know that I had pockets of grief around my heart that would come up and would come up as loneliness. And I am in a relationship right now where it's like much different than prior one. And there's a lot more space and like time to myself. And so I was feeling lonely, but feeling lonely is for me a space of disconnect. I mean, I think you can long for something or someone, but when I feel lonely, I know I'm disconnected from my source, myself, because spending time with myself is pretty awesome. I've developed a lot of talents and skills and like my 27 hobbies. So, like, I mean, if you're listening to this, I'm sure that you've done some self cultivation, especially if you're listening to this podcast. But, having time to yourself is can be wonderful. And I had a wonderful night last night actually doing yoga asana, just rolling out different parts of my body. I did a lot of jaw work because I've had a twitchy eye thing and actually seems a lot better. Had so much, I guess, satisfaction being with myself in a very intimate way and seeing myself and like just dancing. And I just did all kinds of, because my body, I'm a body movement artist amongst other things, and I love to move my body in creative ways. And that is like an expression of God through me. So I had all that last night, and then I was reading a book on Tantra. It's like, had a great time. So, like night, I got there, but I've had these pops of this big, strong feeling coming up. And so I wanted to work on it. So, anyways, back to the therapy session. So, the day that we decided we were going to split, I just remember running into my room and I started chanting mantra. And I started like with the japa, I just started chanting mantra, like just tears streaming down my face. And he was very cold, cut off, wouldn't let me help him with anything. And it was hard. It was hard. And I don't want to go too much into our personal stuff, but this is therapy for me too. And I'm not going to throw him under the bus. Like he's a lovely person. He's a wonderful guy, but it's just there's little things here that I need to talk about without giving up too much information. Again, he's a great person. It's just between the two of us, there was a painful ending. And what happened happened for a reason. I know that it happened in my best interest. Doesn't mean that it doesn't still sting. Um, Anyways, so we went through the different memories. I brought up a feeling, in the therapy session, and then I would hold on to the feeling, and she would have me just trace a ball with my eyes, just like how I did. And she'd do it for about 60 seconds. And then we check in and see if the clenching or the pain had moved in my body, different spots, and kind of like rotated around this area for a while. And then finally we got to my throat. And the biggest pain I felt, and it was, I mean, it was very visceral, like it like came up. There was a memory that came up of my partner who, my ex-partner, who, when he was in the shower, he just made himself very small, and he would crouch down and just let the water hit him. And I saw him one time, and he said something to the like of, "It's nice to feel small sometimes," because he's a very tall guy and is very vulnerable and beautiful. And in the session that I had, she wanted to erase that memory. Like she said, literally take an eraser and just erase it because there was a sadness associated with it. And have you ever seen the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where Jim Carrey and I think it's Kate Winslet, their characters are like running through the different memories and they're being erased and they're kind of like hiding little mementos. That was one memory that I wanted to keep because what we had was beautiful, and even though it wasn't forever, it was never meant to be. He's still human, and I think it's beautiful to see people's vulnerabilities, and when they allow their humanness, like I think that's what allows me and other people to fall in love with them. And it was something that he didn't show too often. So, um, I'm very vulnerable with you guys. And this is probably the most vulnerable podcast I've done in a while. Though my breakup, when I was processing grief, I was like crying on screen. So that's kind of just how I am. Um, but there's beauty in everyone, and like anyone I've been in a relationship, like I don't hate any of them. I don't know if I really hate anyone, um, because everyone has a brightness and aliveness inside of them, like a sort of a soul, um, but beyond that, like even in their humanness, there is something to love, something to accept, something to spark, something within you, because everybody has a weak side. Sometimes everybody wants to be small. Not everybody. Sometimes you want to be small. I get that. You want to just kind of cocoon. So that feeling in my throat, she cued me to imagine drinking cold water and what else? Like imagining that like a balloon was filling up and I was sending it out into the ether. So her tips and tricks, and I'll probably use some of it in my coaching because I'm always learning. But it created some freedom within me, which was nice. And then I had some of it come up later on today. I was talking to some of my friends to help process it, and it peels off in layers. This stuff, like I'm healing. It's lovely, and I'm uncovering pieces of myself, like punk rock yogi, singer of a punk rock yogi band, which is super cool. And hopefully we'll have our first show, I think, in 2 months. So there's certain parts of me that are being uncovered through this process of healing that I didn't know existed or I didn't know were as fierce. And I feel like this year I'm coming into, like, everything is set up kind of perfectly in my life to do a lot of self exploration and through music, arts, and movement. And it's been interesting to not have to work as much because I'm doing lots of wonderful retreats and certifications, and they're supplementing my income, which is lovely. So I get to focus on this sort of healing and creative aspect of me. Which, by the way, the podcast I was going to record today was about yoga retreats, how to like sell them out, how to lead a successful one, what headaches to avoid from a person who's done it quite a few times. So if you're interested in that'll be my next series of podcasts. But I was just processing today, y'all. So I don't even know what I'm going to title this podcast, but I wanted to connect with you, and I think it's important to see vulnerability, especially in um, mental wellness and health professionals. Um, so you know, I don't mind being vulnerable because I love myself, I accept myself, and I think that like feelings are normal and that they can be celebrated and that they help us connect to each other on a human spiritual level. So that's all for today. And next week, I think I'll be in a better spot. Maybe not right after therapy to record this, especially the therapy that I had. So, all right, y'all. Just a short and sweet one. And have a lovely weekend. And I'll talk to you soon. Namaste.